A Machiavellian approach to power in the modern era is built on the foundational understanding that people are driven by self-interest, fear, and a desire for security above all else. Unshakable support is not earned through virtue or popularity, it is engineered by positioning yourself as the most necessary, stable, and rewarding option available. This requires a ruthless understanding of human nature and a willingness to leverage it without sentimentality. Consider the supermarket tantrum. A child screaming for candy is testing the boundaries of authority. The parent who negotiates or concedes teaches that their authority is conditional and can be overturned by emotional blackmail. The Machiavellian parent understands this is a critical battle for control. They respond not with anger, but with an immovable, calm no, demonstrating that their will is the ultimate reality of the child's world. This consistent enforcement creates a dependency. The child learns to rely on the parent's unwavering structure. Later, when the parent chooses to give candy on their own terms, it is not a reward for begging but a gift from a sovereign, reinforcing the power dynamic and making the child's loyalty based on respect for authority, not on the candy itself. This principle scales to any family conflict, such as a holiday dispute. Democratic debates where everyone's feelings are considered often lead to entrenched positions and lasting resentment. The Machiavellian family member avoids this by seizing the initiative. They don't ask for opinions, they present a finished plan. I've made reservations for everyone at a superb restaurant, and absorb the cost. This action frames them as both the leader and the benefactor. Opposition is no longer a difference of opinion but an act of ingratitude towards their generosity and decisiveness. They become the indispensable center of the family, and support for them becomes synonymous with stability and freedom from the burden of choice. In the classroom, the quest to be a liked teacher is a fatal strategic error. It confuses popularity for authority. The Machiavellian educator establishes dominion from the first day through non-negotiable standards and swift, certain consequences for failure. This creates an environment of respect rooted in a healthy fear of underperforming. However, authority alone is brittle. The masterstroke is the strategic distribution of rewards. Public, generous praise for those who excel within the system creates a class of ambitious students who compete ferociously for the teacher's approval, which has been established as a rare and valuable commodity. The student support is unshakable because their own academic identity and success become dependent on the very system the teacher controls. The modern workplace is a perfect microcosm of Machiavellian struggle. The employee who seeks universal friendship is on the path to being overlooked and exploited. The strategic player seeks to become indispensable. They gravitate toward difficult, high-visibility projects that others fear, mastering complex systems and cultivating relationships with key clients. They build a reputation for ruthless competence so solid that to challenge them is perceived as damaging the company's own interests. Their manager supports them not out of personal affection, but out of sheer necessity and a fear of the operational chaos that would ensue in their absence. A manager who operates on Machiavellian principles understands they are not a boss, but a ruler. Their authority must be both respected and feared. They may grant unexpected perks or bonuses, not because of employee demands, but as a calculated demonstration of their power to give. This perceived benevolence is a tool. However, any direct challenge to their authority must be met with immediate and decisive action. A subordinate who questions them in public is not debated, they are isolated, their influence systematically dismantled, and their responsibilities reassigned. This sends an unambiguous message to the rest of the team: loyalty is rewarded with security and opportunity, while disloyalty leads to professional oblivion. The team's support becomes unshakable because their collective survival depends on the manager's favor. In business negotiations, sentimentality is a weakness to be excised. The goal is not a friendly win-win, but a strategic victory that structures the relationship to your overwhelming advantage. This is achieved by ensuring the other party's success becomes dependent on a resource you exclusively control, a proprietary technology, a key distribution channel, or the relationship with the end client. You make yourself the gatekeeper of their profitability. Their support for the deal, and for you, becomes unwavering not because of friendship, but because their own financial survival is inextricably linked to your continued goodwill. You have engineered their loyalty through cold, calculated self-interest. This extends to managing public perception during a crisis. A corporation facing scandal cannot rely on facts and logic to sway public opinion. The modern public consumes narratives, not truth. A Machiavellian response bypasses dry press releases entirely in favor of a grand, theatrical spectacle. This could be the dramatic resignation of a CEO, sacrificed to save the brand, or the announcement of a multi-million-dollar charitable initiative. The goal is not to apologize but to dominate the news cycle with a story of contrition or benevolence so powerful it overwhelms the original criticism. Public support follows the most compelling narrative, and Machiavellianism is about controlling that narrative absolutely. The principles of power even apply to personal friendships and romantic relationships. The individual who is constantly available, perpetually agreeable, and endlessly supportive is not cherished, they are taken for granted. Their support becomes an expected baseline, devoid of value. In contrast, the person who maintains a degree of mystery and independence, who is generous with their time and affection on their own terms but is fully capable of withdrawing it, cultivates a far more potent form of loyalty. Others will work harder for their approval, fear the loss of their favor, and value their kindness more intensely precisely because it is not a guaranteed constant. They have made their regard a scarce and desirable resource. At its core, this philosophy is a rejection of idealism in favor of pragmatism. It accepts that humanity is flawed, self-interested, and easily swayed by appearances and immediate benefits. The leader who seeks unshakable support must therefore become a master of reality itself for their followers. They must control the options available, define the terms of success and failure, and present themselves as the sole architect of stability and reward. It is a calculated and often cynical process, but it is effective because it does not fight human nature, it harnesses it. The digital age provides the ultimate toolkit for this manipulation. Social media allows a leader to craft and project a flawless image of strength, benevolence, and competence directly to the public, bypassing traditional critical filters. A populist politician can use these platforms to create a cult of personality, framing themselves as the sole solution to public anxiety and their opponents as corrupt elites. They don't debate policy, they sell a feeling of security and belonging, making their support emotional rather than rational, and therefore far more resilient to factual criticism. Within a group of friends, the same dynamics are at play. The person who always organizes events, knows the best connections, and controls the social calendar becomes the group's unofficial leader. Their invitations are sought after, and their approval becomes a social currency. To be excluded from their plans is a form of exile. This influence is not built by being the nicest, but by being the most socially strategic and indispensable to the group's cohesion and entertainment. For a small business owner, competing against larger corporations requires Machiavellian ingenuity. They cannot win on price or scale, so they must win on perception and dependency. They might foster an intense, familial loyalty among a core customer base by offering personalized service and making them feel like valued insiders. These customers support the business unshakably not just because of the product, but because they feel a personal stake in the owner's success, a dependency engineered through exceptional perceived care. A project manager overseeing a complex initiative must also wield these principles. They cannot simply assign tasks, they must make the team's success synonymous with their own leadership. They might take public credit for the team's triumphs while deftly assigning blame for failures to external factors or underperforming members. They reward those who display absolute loyalty with prime assignments and visibility, ensuring that the most ambitious team members tie their fortunes directly to the manager's own. On a community level, a homeowners association board member can build unshakable support by becoming the sole source of resolution for neighborhood issues. They don't just raise problems, they present complete solutions. They might handle a persistent barking dog complaint not through public admonishment, but through quiet, firm pressure that resolves the issue while allowing the complaining neighbors to feel heard and protected. Those neighbors will then support the board member relentlessly, viewing them as a guarantor of their peace and property values. Even in the dynamic of a romantic partnership, a form of this power play can emerge. The partner who controls the finances, makes the major life decisions, or is perceived as having more options outside the relationship often holds a disproportionate amount of power. The other partner's support can become rooted in a fear of loss and a dependency on the stability provided, rather than in purely romantic love. This is a cold reality of how power dynamics can influence even the most intimate human connections. Ultimately, the pursuit of unshakable support is a continuous campaign of perception management and strategic maneuvering. It requires the fortitude to make difficult, unpopular decisions in the short term to secure long-term dominance. It demands a willingness to be feared rather than loved when necessary, and to always ensure that your value is never in question. The moment you become expendable, your support will vanish. Therefore, the final, most brutal truth is this: unshakable support is a myth if based on emotion. The only support that is truly unshakable is the support that is compelled by self-interest. Your goal is not to win hearts, but to architect a world where supporting you is fundamentally in everyone's best interest. You must weave your own success so deeply into the fabric of their stability, profit, and security that to remove you would be to invite chaos. That is the essence of modern Machiavellian power, not rule by force, but rule by indispensable design. Your next move is not to consolidate, but to command. To do that, you must master the art of controlling the narrative itself. You must learn to not merely respond to events, but to orchestrate them. If you are ready to move from defense to domination, your instruction continues. Subscribe. The next video will detail how to weaponize religion and ideology, using shared belief to control the masses.